Arc 6, Chapter 3, The Little Girl's Cell.
How did your talk with the master go?
You could say that it went the same as usual, and that he irritated me more than usual. You get the point.
Well, I understand what you mean.
Subaru's group had left the parlor, and Frederica had been entrusted with guiding them towards the mansion's east wing. This scary-faced woman with her beautiful long blonde hair and courteously worn maid outfit finally exchanged polite greetings with Anastasia and Julius as one of the mansion's proper maids, and spoke to Subaru, who was walking away discouraged.
Was Garf useful on your journey and in the city? For him to get heavily injured to the point of not being able to come back. Even when I gave him specific instructions, I am worried about him causing trouble for Emilia-sama and the others.
No, don't worry about that. Garfield worked really hard after all. He's resting along with Otto-kun right now, without causing any trouble. Well, I'm not so sure about the any trouble part. I hope that's not what he's doing. Regardless, we did request that they rest.
My apologies for my foolish younger brother causing you trouble.
Emilia didn't respond when Frederica offered her apologies. She was still doubtful about what she had said. Anyhow, Garfield's behavior worried Petra, Ram, Roswaal, and Frederica, but his mentality had changed in some way or another during the incident at Bristella. One could say that he had matured. No doubt about it. To begin with, for a 15-year-old boy, Garfield's strength was already outstanding. Even considering just how fierce the battles with the Bowel Hunter and the Eight Arms had been, he was still far from being able to boast himself as the strongest. But even then, he certainly possessed a level of strength that contended with not just the Emilia camps, but the whole continent's top ranks as well. His biggest problem? Perhaps his immature mentality. Once that mental frailness was overcome, however, he would go a level beyond. Regardless, there was still a ways to go. That was something that shouldn't be rushed. Steadily and assuredly becoming stronger, stepping firmly on each step of the stairs before moving on to the next stage was the appropriate way a 15-year-old should mature. And in addition,
There's another reason for him not coming back right away this time.
Is it Mimi?
There's that too, but...
he smiled wryly at Emilia and cutting into the conversation with her insightful point. Even Emilia, someone who was supposed to be unfamiliar with romantic relationships between men and women, seemed to be curious about the love affairs of other people to some extent. She was very interested in Garfield and Mimi's relationship. Of course, Garfield should feel something for Mimi, who had risked her own life to guard his, and she was not shy in proclaiming her affection for him both before and after the battle. Frankly speaking, there was no man out there who would not waver upon being struck with affection from a girl he didn't hate. Subaru, too, was no exception. He was unable to say anything about that phenomenon, considering that he was one that had experienced it before. He would have to wait and see how Garfield would respond to Mimi's feelings, considering the fact that his fondness for Ram was clear. But that was a concern different from the one Garfield had left in the city of Priscilla.
Subaru-sama, do you need to ask me something?
No, nothing in particular. It wouldn't be right for me to talk about this matter.
He looked at Frederica's profile with a profound look and was questioned about its meaning. Taking Garfield's true feelings in mind, Subaru dodged her question. At Priscilla, there was a family that Garfield worried about. A family of golden hair and green eyes, traits that would remind anyone of Frederica and Garfield, who were brother and sister. Garfield's relationship with that family was like his relationship with Frederica. It was certain that relationship was something Garfield wished to report to his family members, Frederica and Ryuzu himself.
So I won't say anything. Natsuki Subaru will leave it in a Choku Suteki way.
Oh, speaking of Garfield, at Bristella there were some children that were really friendly with him. and they were...
Emilia-tan, you're gonna make my monologue go to waste!
His interference was about to go to waste, so Subaru literally covered Emilia's mouth to stop her from speaking. The possible outcome would be scary if he were to leave it as it was, so he decided that he would make the time to properly explain the gist of the setting later to Emilia. Subaru waved his hand with a forced smile at Frederica, whose face became more and more puzzled.
Sorry to interrupt you two while you're happily heating up your intimacy, but do you all know where you're headed?
Oh, that place called the confinement room. That person we talked about before is there.
That person, then? I wonder if the conversation will go well.
It's something that hasn't been done before, so I don't know. Either way, I'll at least try asking, to make sure.
Julius responded to Subaru's explanation by going into deep thought, his face complex as he followed the latter's back. In reality, Subaru was also aware of the many problems this proposal had in store. However, if all went well, then they would lower the risk of their journey by a considerable amount.
Also, that girl's rather fond of Subaru, so shouldn't it be fine?
That girl's more fond of Garfield than she is of me. Huh, maybe she likes him more because he's feline. Oh, we've arrived!
While he was replying to Emilia's optimistic words with a strained smile, Frederica stopped walking. Subaru and Emilia too halted their movements, having entered somewhere with a view and atmosphere distinctively alien in the mansion. The floor layout was roughly identical to that of the previous Roswaal mansion. However, the basement part of the eastern wing, that was the only place that was starkly different. In the central building of the mansion, there was the main center wing that concentrated the facilities needed for daily life. The west wing contained multi-purpose facilities such as the maids' rooms and the guests' rooms. Then there was the eastern wing, a place that acted as a storehouse or safe for the history and heritage of the ancient Mathers bloodline, such as books. However, the only place that was different was the eastern wing's basement. There was a clear goal set for the cold, stone room in the basement of the noble mansion.
Quite the unpleasant atmosphere floating around this place, huh?
And Anastasia snorted her nose, complimenting her brief comment on the different atmosphere. There was no denial of her view on the mood, so it was indeed a clear assessment that everyone agreed with. The atmosphere that drifted about in this level of the mansion could not be described in any way other than unpleasant.
It's still different from miasma, it seems, but my body ain't feeling too good about it for sure.
In regard to the building structure and this facility's original purpose, it may be completely unrelated, but I do believe that this structure was ultimately erected due to the presence inside.
Anastasia and Julius looked down at the continuous stairs leading down to the basement of the mansion, filled with darkness, as they exchanged words. The confinement room had already been brought to their attention. It seemed that both of them had correctly imagined the sort of establishment that existed in the basement, or were as close to the right answer as possible.
Well then, I shall be guiding you all now. Please be careful to avoid tripping over your own feet.
With those words, Frederica led them down the stairs. Subaru and the rest followed her tall back, headed for the basement. Julius's face indicated that he had steeled himself for what laid ahead. The footsteps they made while walking down the stone stairs resounded very clearly throughout the space they were in. A cold breeze blew upwards from the basement, causing Subaru's hair to shake slightly, which got his nerves incomprehensibly.
I am going to open it.
Having descended towards the basement, they were blocked by an iron door standing right in front of them. The door had many solid locks installed onto it. Frederica released several of them, one by one. The key to the door made a sound. The locks were undone, and then the door opened with a creaking noise. Beyond that gate, a stone pathway laid in front, with yet another door to be found deep inside this place at the back.
The person you are looking for is beyond this door.
Frederica stepped to the side of the door, making way for them to enter, and then bowed. They gave acknowledging gestures with a nod of their chin in response, and the four people headed straight towards the door, with Subaru in the lead. The door at the deepest part of the basement had no lock. He reached for the doorknob. If he were to push it open, they would surely meet what was inside. Upon having come in contact with the door, Subaru looked back with bated breath. Emilia, Julius, and Anastasia all stared and watched Subaru. The three nodded their heads at Subaru, and he took a deep breath. Then, putting strength into the hand that gripped the knob, and with a sound, the door was pushed open.
Rawr! Rawr! I'm gonna eat you! Help me! No! Nobody will come save you even if you cry for help!
With the doors opening, a lovely voice was heard as the pathway became bathed in light. On the other side of the open door, a lone girl could be seen inside the room, a multitude of dolls placed around her. Her back faced the others as she continued to play with the dolls in her hands. She changed into an imitative voice, though it was unclear just what exactly she was imitating. Nonetheless, she was pretty into it.
Nope, he's coming because he promised to come to me when I was in trouble. After all, huh?
Holding a doll representing a little doll, the child stood up, having suddenly noticed something. Looking back timidly, she saw Subaru and the others standing still at the entrance, dumbfounded, and then opened her round, large eyes. She had braided, light brown hair and had simple but lovely facial features.
Yo! What's up?
Addressing her, Subaru raised his hand as if nothing had happened at all.
Oni-san, you idiot! At least knock before you come in!
Unsurprisingly, he was yelled at as a result of this little prank.
So yeah, this is the prisoner of this mansion. Meili here will advise us regarding the witch beasts.
I've been disgraced. Oni-san hurt my feelings.
Subaru introduced the depressed girl who was crouching at a corner of the room, surrounded by stuffed toys, Meili. Julius shook his head, putting his fingers between his eyebrows. While keeping the girl at the corner of his vision, he spoke this as if blaming Subaru, who had gotten carried away.
It was a bit clumsy of me to have not gotten more information about this beforehand. But the poorness of your character is showing. It is inexcusable that you pull these pranks at every opportunity.
I don't think I was playing around that much, though. Though I do agree that it was in bad taste. Also, she really was someone dangerous before, you know?
Julius appeared to have misgivings of Subaru's justifications. Ignoring those skeptical men, Emilia and Anastasia lined up and spoke out to Meili.
Sorry, Meili. We'll scold Subaru for this later, so don't worry.
My, what a cute girl, ain't she? Beatrice-chan, Petra-chan, ain't this quite telling of Natsuki-kun's tastes?
That's a ridiculous opinion of me! Mind saying something more fitting? I've been trying to bring people together, not specifically lollies!
There was suddenly some sense of grounding to his nickname Lollymancer, so he wished she wouldn't say such frightening things. Putting that aside, Meili hadn't listened to Emilia and her words either, as she was indignant and earnest. In that sense, there was an imbalance in the way she possessed childlike sensitivity.
Meili.
I can't hear you.
Meili, come on!
I don't care.
This was the situation. She was a nuisance, having entered a mode in which she'd refused to listen. Thus, Subaru decided to hurry up and bring out the last resort as quickly as possible. He reached around his back and then showed Meili the ace up his sleeve.
Look, Meili! It's a present here! Take it! It's a new stuffed toy! Darapanda!
Wow, it's so cute.
But Subaru presented Meili with was a stuffed toy, one that he had put together during the dragon carriage trip back from the city of Pristella. As someone who had improved his skills in domestic work the past year, Natsuki Subaru's sewing skills had become twice as good as before. He could now produce stuffed toys, and if so wished, he could even maybe create women's clothes. In any case, this new stuffed toy was innovative work that had merged a panda theme with a lazy from the heat taste. He more or less felt like he had seen something akin to it before, but since that was something from beyond this world, it wouldn't be a big deal, so it was irrelevant. And so he presented the new piece that had those details, and Meili accepted it with glimmering eyes.
Cute! It's a new animal. I wonder what I should name it. Okay, I've got it. I'll call this one Big Panda.
I see you've named it literally what it is.
Putting aside her naming sense, she was extremely skilled at understanding the essence of things. Hugging the stuffed panda in a loving way, she looked at Subaru and the others with a face that indicated that her mood had been salvaged.
By the way, welcome back, Oni-san. One-san. Looks like you've all been away for quite a bit, huh? Petra-chan missed you, you know.
We were gone for a whole month after all, and we're going to be gone for a while again, so I don't really want to think about how it'll probably anger Petra. But
Petra-chan does love Oni-san after all. New people?
As she was lining up her scattered plush toys onto shelves, Meili's face revealed that she had just noticed Julius and Anastasia. Julius looked surprised at the sudden change in mood, but Anastasia simply nodded with a composed look.
Compared to her, Mimi's ability to manipulate us is only beginner level.
Now that you say it, I agree. Let us give our thanks to Mimi.
Master and servant displayed a strange sense of agreement, and after that, Julius's eyes swiftly darted around the room, after briefly taking a look at that underground space.
Nevertheless, I had assumed this would be a harsh environment after hearing that it was a confinement room. But contrary to my expectations, it seems to be a rather peaceful place to spend time in.
The person in here is a little girl, so it's not like we wanted to torment her. But she can't go outside either, so it's complicated.
Emilia lowered her eyebrows, her visage complex. Just like she had stated, the confinement room, or rather Meili's living space to put it bluntly, gave off a very lenient feeling for a place of incarceration. It did seem cold because of the stone pathway, but there was colorful wallpaper and carpet decorating the girl's room, and she was free to do whatever she pleased, considering how she wasn't even restrained. On the shelves, there were countless stuffed toys that had been crafted by Subaru's hands, along with many books and play equipment. She was being given food, and there wasn't any problem with bathing or going to the bathroom. In short, it was a place where a hikikomori could live in peace. It was so comfy that even Subaru wanted to be confined in it. However,
it seems that there is a peculiar air, not unlike miasma, leaking endlessly.
It also seems to be coming from that girl, doesn't it?
in response to Anastasia and the other's look, Meili nodded with a smile on her face. She had an honest smile, but something emanated from that girl, so dreadful and disgusting that it could not be hidden. That was the biggest reason as to why Meili had been confined here and was not released.
I did talk about it on the dragon carriage, but this girl actually aimed for Emilia and us before. So she's like a killer for hire? You could put it like that, I guess.
I feel that it is inaccurate already at this point, but please continue.
Feels like you're implying something with the way you say that. Anyways, she's a professional killer. As for what Meili's small body can do, in short, she can manipulate witch beasts. She is a witch beast master.
Yep, me and the bad animal sans get along pretty well.
Meili said that with an ahem as she puffed up her chest with pride, but the contents of her words were still shocking. Witch beasts were harmful threats to mankind and were never friendly with humans at first. It seemed that there was one exception, an arrangement in which witch beasts would obey the person who had broken their horn, but
In Meili's case, the presence of the horn is irrelevant. I'm not too sure about that theory, so even if I explain it to you, you wouldn't understand.
From what Mama said, I play the same role as a witch beast's horn. So, I can be friendly with the witch beasts.
fulfilling the role of a witch beast's horn, the meaning of that was obscure. That being said, it seemed like there had never been any type of research done on the ecology of witch beasts. Of course, there was the possibility that there were people who hunted witch beasts for a living, but even if they held that information about their traits, they would not be looking at them from a research point of view, most likely.
Initially, Meili came to attack us with one more person. Garfield defeated that person, and this girl was caught. Ever since then, she's always been sheltered by this mansion.
Why did you do that much? No matter what you say, if she was an enemy before, you should have dealt with her quickly. But I'm guessing it's more like you can deal with this.
There's no way we can even think of killing her. But at the same time, we can't expel her either, because this girl says that if she gets released...
Mama will get mad at me. Elsa died and I failed, so she'll definitely kill me if she finds me. So, staying here is the safest option.
Meili answered with a calm tone, but it seemed like her expression had become clouded. Meili had lost Elsa, who she worked with, and had failed in carrying out her task. Their guardians were most likely something like professional killer managers, and their failures would definitely never be tolerated. Banishing her would mean she would receive punishment. Those would be her own personal consequences, and even though Subaru and the others were completely unrelated to that,
It is certainly a nightmare to deal with.
This is not the first time Emilia-sama and Yora's ideations have been brought up. It was out of line for us outsiders to utter such inconsiderate things. Incidentally, who is this mama of hers?
We don't know. Any other thing beside this mother's name, Mama, is unknown. Based on what Meili said, she doesn't even know what her face looks like. What kind of family environment is that?
but considering the professional killer business, perhaps that grim way of life was unavoidable. It seemed difficult to figure out who this mother was based off of the content of Meili's statements, so they could shake off anxiety about the future.
That Roswaal bastard was also useless after Elsa died, since there was no one like an intermediary.
Did you say something?
Just talking to myself.
The insignia incident that occurred on the very first day Subaru had been summoned in the royal capital had been orchestrated by Roswaal. Of course, Elsa, who had attempted to reap Emilia's life, was also the one he had commissioned to do so. Considering the flow of the events of that request, it should have been easy to draw that connection. However, the intermediary of that communication line had been lost somehow, and it seemed that they were unable to contact that person. If Roswaal's words were to be trusted in any way, Elsa and Meili's subsequent attacks were unrelated to his intentions. This was where this mama or whatever had become a concern.
Anyhow, that's our relationship with Meili. The girl's here out of necessity. It's not to spoil her, at least for now.
If that's the case, Subaru and everyone else are being a little too nice.
Well, in that case, it's our dreamy good virtues taking over.
Because, after all, it was painful seeing this small, youthful girl being confined to a cold basement. It was not something they could just decide to forget, and if they attempted to disregard it, they would end up getting bad dreams. So it's not like he held any grudge against her, and so he was better off being in a good mood with her.
Wouldn't you normally have a grudge against her?
Should I?
I mean, didn't you say that she tried to kill you? So...
There's such a thing called idle malicious intent. Although, a crime is a crime, regardless of age.
In response to Anastasia's question, Subaru went into thought while scratching his cheek. Once he took a peek at Meili to the side, Subaru noticed that she was looking at himself with unreadable emotions in her eyes. He wasn't really concerned about her, but he spoke his thoughts honestly.
If someone orders a person who doesn't know any better to commit a crime, then the person who made the order should be blamed. Even more so if it's a kid. If they're capable of thinking for themselves and do it regardless, I think there's no difference. An eye for an eye, the Hammurabi Code, is nothing but negative in my eyes.
That's some lip service. So do you think the people this girl has murdered would agree with that?
I don't think so. They're free to want revenge on Meili. As for myself, had I died, even I don't think I'd state my forgiveness like I do now.
In the end, Subaru's opinions and thoughts would change depending on first impressions. If he were told things such as that he wasn't right in the head or that he was being ruled over by his emotions, then so be it. Actually, that was probably true.
Back when I was a kid, my parents and other adults would take responsibility for me. So, I thought that if the kids near me do something they can't take responsibility for, how about I take it on instead? That's all.
A valuable opinion. Thanks.
Anastasia cut off Subaru's words, as she had lost interest halfway. Of course, he felt like that was a typical reaction, so his feelings hadn't been hurt. In an organization where clean judgment was not taken into consideration, then any crime would be judged to be a crime, regardless of age. A probation period, however, was given, because this camp was a lenient one. Subaru didn't dislike that atmosphere and environment.
I believe what Subaru is saying makes sense.
Thank you.
He had not been expecting completely positive reactions, but words such as those were akin to salvation for him. Turning to Meili, who had been forgotten even though the conversation had her as the topic, Subaru matched his eyesight with hers.
I have something that I need your help with. Mind coming along with me?
Sure thing. I'll go with Oni-san.
Meili quietly nodded at Subaru's request. Subaru, nor anyone else, pointed out how they felt like they could witness slight tears from the girl who had hidden her face with the panda in her embrace.
I've only been to the Auguria sand dunes twice.
Subaru and the others' explanation ended, and Meili said those words while fiddling with her braided hair. She closed her eyes as if looking back at her memories before resuming.
I visited to replenish the witch beasts in my control. There are lots of witch beasts there, so a lot of progress was made, but... Oni-san, are you really going there? Everyone besides me will probably die, you know.
It seemed that their actions were seen as reckless in the eyes of this girl who was devoid of morals. The Witch Beast Master's opinion carried quite some weight in regards to just how much they were striving for.
I really want to use the expertise of those with experience as a reference, but the idea that we'll die if we go has been thrown around a lot lately. So, it's a bit late for that. Also, if it's just like a maze in the desert, then we have preparations to break out of it.
Yes, that'd be me.
Anastasia waved her hand, emphasizing her role as a guide. However, avoiding getting lost on the path in this endeavor to conquer the desert to get to the watchtower was only worth 30 points. Failure would be inevitable with this score. Or rather, as long as they remained unable to find an answer worth a perfect score, they would probably have difficulty getting out alive. The three problems: the desert labyrinth, the witch beast den, and the stage's eye. The desert labyrinth would work out with Anastasia being Erinna, and as for the counter to the witch beast den, this is what they wanted to prepare a measure for. That was why he wished to hear more details from Meili, but...
how should I put it? Do you know any way to avoid the witch beasts? Or rather, ways to lure them away from us?
Oni-san, if you run off by yourself, a lot of them will definitely chase you, you know.
I've already done that a few times, and they were painful experiences.
It happened once a year ago at the mansion, and once again a little while after that by the Whale of the Plains. He felt like it was about time to stop this. Of course, he wasn't reluctant to do it if there was no other measure to take, but Subaru wanted to avoid being the only one left behind in the middle of the desert if possible.
If Oni-san doesn't want to do it, then maybe you could prepare a lot of decoys for it. All witch beasts jump at living things over normal food. So, maybe something like that?
That's definitely a no. I'm against it. I am against it.
You don't have to disagree so frantically. Nobody will be chosen, so it's fine.
That being said, it seemed like no useful opinions were coming up, or at least, as far as the witch beast's psychology was concerned, with Meili, someone who was better at handling them than anyone else, incapable of coming up with an effective plan, they were helpless.
Yep, guess we'll have to beat the witch beasts that come at us one by one. Gonna expect a lot from Emilia and Julius.
I'm wondering about your self-appraisal, considering how you were not included there. But do you think this is possible?
Julius reacted to Subaru's proposal by asking Meili about its feasibility. Upon hearing that, Meili looked at Emilia and Julius in turn, and...
Probably not. Can One-san use magic for about a week without rest?
You want us to have a final battle in trench warfare?
I'll try?
You don't have to! This is the flow of an unreasonable conversation. Emilia-tan's hair and skin will dry up, so let's not, okay? Rejected!
It seemed like the plan to break through by force already had some unreasonable details to it. Just how much of that scenario Meili had actually seen was unknown, but if there was no such thing as childhood exaggeration in her statements, then they could never perform the unreasonable.
How about smearing witch beast blood on the dragon carriage and fooling the other witch beast's sense of smell?
No, the ground dragons won't be able to fool them. And there's the possibility that the witch beasts won't band together. Something like hiring guards. Oh, how about hiring a big army for this? Kind of like what we did with the White Whale.
That will not be possible either. That was done before by other people who challenged the Pleiades Watchtower. Even though it was not as big as an army, it was still a large force. Feel free to guess the result. How about breaking the horn of a powerful witch beast and using it to fend off the other witch beasts?
If it's not as overwhelming as the whale, then we'll be overrun by their numbers. It'd be nice if avoiding them was simple, such as using something like an insect repellent spray.
Subaru's odor, or rather the witch's lingering scent, was a spray that attracted insects towards him, so he was useless. Roswaal was the one responsible for constantly managing the barrier that separated the Arlem village from the witch beast's habitat. Something like creating a barrier around people, one that moved together with them. It seemed like that sort of thing was not possible.
Perhaps we should have Roswaal hold on to us and attack from the sky?
If we could slip by the sage's eye, then that may have been an option.
Oh, damn, right. We have to consider the sage too.
His unrealistic viewpoint was denied by a realistic one. Even if they could just evade the witch beasts in the desert, there was still the sage to worry about. Just how had nobody ever been able to slip by this person? It was honestly the only thing they were completely in the dark on how to handle.
If we could at least narrow it down to one problem.
Jeez, I guess I have no choice.
Oh?
Subaru and the others all sat in a circle in the room, getting headaches from thinking about the way out of this conundrum, and then, finally, Meili spoke. She stood up, shaking her small head at Subaru and the others.
I can go with you guys. If I'm there, the witch beast won't care what you do. You'll be free to stay away from them, make them pets, make them kill each other, or make them eat the sage person.
We won't do the second half! Or, anyways.
He opened his eyes wide at that fairly extreme remark, but the proposal shocked him even more. Not only was Meili being cooperative, but she was willing to go out on her own. an opinion he thought she would never express.
Aren't you scared to go outside? Is that alright?
It's not like I'll be found by Mama, right? After I leave the mansion, you know? I'm scared of being found. But I can't just stay in this room my whole life.
He was surprised with Meili being conscious of that fact, that sooner or later she would have to leave. But that may have been natural. He had been taking turns checking on her whenever the change presented itself, but even then, the time that girl spent confined in her room by herself was multitudes larger. Certainly, she had had so much time to think that even the silence would become scary. Being confined in a room alone was both relaxing and terrifying. And even if those sensations evoked lethargy in her, one day, her heart would be tortured without warning.
Subaru?
And while Subaru was feeling unusual sympathy for Meili's heart, Emilia gently pulled on his sleeve. Subaru knew what she was thinking, as he agreed with it as well.
This isn't just a fun walk outside. We have a guide, we'll be crossing the desert, and even though we have you, we'll have to get through the witch beast den. To make matters worse, some scary sage guy might be on the watch out too.
Isn't it nice taking a walk after a long time?
With those bullish words, Meili replied to Subaru. Just how much of it was a bluff was unbeknownst to him, and likewise, just how much of it was her telling the truth was too, but...
She is the trump card for the witch beasts, right?
Yeah, that's right. We'll be counting on you, Meili.
I'll try my best, even if you don't.
Emilia and Subaru exchanged gazes with each other, and then nodded to Meili. The girl, the recipient of their words, spoke as if she would push herself beyond her utmost abilities, and hugged the panda tightly. And so, this became a single step forward towards accomplishing their journey, at which Julius folded his arms, some words spilling from his mouth, his face one of admiration at the result he had just witnessed.
I really wish that I would not utter these words, but persuading little girls really is one of your strong points. Although I do not believe this is a good ability to be renowned for.
It's because you guys are steadily treating me like a little girl user! Or have you know that Meili isn't as small as a little girl? She's not a little girl!
Subaru pointed at the room's entrance in frustration in response to Julius's useless words. Right as he did, however, the door was opened, and a person showed up on the other side of the door.
I was wondering what was so noisy, only to find out it was just Subaru making a racket again, I suppose.
Having finished her private talk with Roswaal, yet another little girl had joined them. Another fuss was made, but that was an incident to be put aside as something not worth bringing up. So that will be left as that.